r/AskReddit by Laugh with Mims. Women of Reddit, what do you think would be the worst thing about being a man? Feeling uncomfortable or shamed for showing your emotions. It's a sad truth, but since the dawn of time, men have been encouraged to live up to the expectations of having to be tough or being a rock for the family. As a woman, I think we feel more comfortable crying and expressing our sadness. Men get sad too, and it's about time they feel free to express it as easily as women do. Having to be the person physically in charge in a threatening situation. Like always being with a man when walking home from a party in a sketchy area at night. Yes, there is safety in numbers, but the dude is expected to be protective regardless of level of awareness, self-defensive, or drunkenness. That's a lot of pressure. I've been in situations where a woman in my group talked a lot of shit to some fairly scary characters, something she presumably wouldn't do if no men were with her. Not cool. Being arrested for defending myself against an abusive partner. When I was in high school, my dad got remarried to a woman with a ton of emotional baggage. She was verbally abusive and would start fights with anyone who would take the bait. They got in an argument one night and she started to shove him. He put his hands in his jacket pocket so that there could be no confusion of him hitting her. When he refused to engage, she told him she would kill his kids in their sleep. He called the cops. They came, listened to the story, and my dad went to jail. She was alone in the house with all of my siblings. I was out of town that night. My dad is a big teddy bear. I've never seen him in trouble with the law until that night. I got him out of jail the next day and then worked with him to send my younger siblings to live with my mom in Utah, and I got an apartment with my next youngest brother. He had a criminal record for having his and his children's lives threatened. That was really up. Oh, you got stuck taking care of the kids today, huh? Giving mom a day off, finally? Dads know what I'm talking about. I was a stay-at-home dad until my daughter went to kindergarten. This hit me deep in the soul. I've been accused of being a child predator while reading a book on a park bench while my daughter plays, have had the cops called on me when my daughter and I were just walking down the street 2 blocks from my own home, and have been generally looked down on even by family members while I was a stay-at-home parent. The giving mom a day off line is just emotionally crushing sometimes when it's said. Having an even harsher reaction when I'd go against gender roles. I mean, as a woman, there's backlash sometimes, but there's a whole movement very publicized that tells me that I can do whatever I want, and they say yeah. I don't feel a man that would want to do something for girls or for women as that much support. I cannot fathom how a guy sits down to poop and their junk is what, just chilling inside the toilet? Do you lift them and rest them on the toilet seat? I have no idea how dudes do it. Do you get backsplash on your ballsack? I ask these questions to my boyfriend. I'm convinced he thinks I'm a lunatic, but I just think balls would be incredibly inconvenient. I had to laugh because it's so second nature that I didn't think about it. Yeah, your junk just kinda chills in the toilet, but there's at least a good 6 inches to the water. A flaccid 6 inches is pretty rare, so you don't have to worry too much about that, despite the memes and chads in this thread. Also, cause of how you sit, backsplash usually goes right up the pooper. That said, I lived in North Africa for a little while, and I had to be careful with squat toilets, but that was more about touching the nasty piston area. The only problem I've ever had being a dude is trying to pee/poop with a boner in a toilet, angling it. Every dude in this thread can relate to that, I'm sure. Never had a problem flaccid. Man, do I hate that. Especially with morning wood. Being expected to be more effective at physical labor, being expected to do more dangerous work, receiving less empathy when struggling with emotional issues. My wife literally came home one night and told me she was leaving for another man, took my money, and filed for divorce. She also took and kept the dog. I was allowed 1 day off from work to deal with it, our court date. If I even slightly mentioned it, people would go silent. and it's 6 months later and everyone expects me to be completely over it. It's torture. Emotional unavailability of others. As a woman, I definitely face a lot of hardships that men don't have to deal with. But when I'm at my point of breaking, sobbing and inconsolable, I know I can message one of my friends, usually one of the girls, and cry and bitch to them about it, and they will listen to me and really connect with me. They will tell me how shitty the person who did that is, how difficult it must be to deal with, how strong I'm for persevering in the face of adversity. On the other hand, I've spent my life trying to be a non-judgmental source of venting for my male friends, and I've found that basically everyone who I'm like that with ends up either thinking I'm into them romantically or expressing how grateful they are for something they get so little of. Guys are told to just suck it up and push their emotions down, and I think it is harmful to all of us. I've found that basically everyone who I'm like that with ends up either thinking I'm into them romantically. Honestly, I think is why so many young guys believe in the friend zone stuff. They befriend a young woman who treats them like she would a female friend, and they get confused because it seems a lot more deeper than what they consider a friendship, so they get bitter when the girl complains about her shitty boyfriend but never leaves him, or does leave the boyfriend but doesn't date him despite the emotional investment the boy has in this girl, because they don't realize that complaining about their shitty boyfriend is a normal thing young women do with their friends. Sharing their feelings is normal. Being each other's shoulder to cry on is normal. But to the young guy who hasn't experienced this, they can feel like they were taken advantage of, led on, etc. Probably the stigma. I've seen a single father get shouted at for being with his kid when at a park for trying to kidnap children. The dude wanted to make his son happy, not molest him. I was fishing at a park today, and some 8-year-old kid who was alone came up to me and showed me that he broke his line off in the water. He didn't have any extra tackle, so I gave him a new jig and hook, tied it on for him and everything. It was the cheapest reel and line I've ever seen, so his folks must have just picked it up at Walmart and said, "Here, go fish." He wanted to fish with me after that. I didn't want to tell him to get lost because he was looking up to me at that point, so I said, "Sure, if you want to." The entire time I was having a mini panic attack waiting for the kid's parents to show up and kick my ass or something. The kid was super sweet and kept trying to impress me by telling me all the huge fish he caught. Eventually he went away and his folks showed up, and as I was leaving he pretended not to know me and quickly gave me a stealthy wave. Honestly, probably people just assuming that you'll do all of the gross shit that no one else wants to do. Fixing up the car, unclogging the toilet, cleaning out the spider webs in the attic, scrubbing the mildew out of the bathtub. Guys are just expected to do it all without complaint because that's the manly thing to do. As a woman, I find it pretty unfair, alongside that are hiding a boner, people assuming that you can't have mental illnesses/disorders, not being allowed to cry/show emotions/be insecure about your body. All of it is really unfair. I'm sorry guys. For the first part, it isn't so much that I won't try to do those things mentioned, it's that people just assume I know how. My wife was absolutely dumbfounded when she asked me to fix something on her car, and I told her I didn't know how. Her entire family ragged on me for not knowing. All the men in her family, because they do know car stuff, and all the women in the family, even though they knew nothing. But you know what's fascinating? Is that after countless YouTube videos and experimenting and now knowing just a tiny bit about cars, I found that all the men in her family know jack shit about cars. That blew my mind, that I was honest and getting heckled by people who were just hiding that they didn't know anything. Hands down always being the villain. A colleague of mine was a bit on the heavier side, but decided to get into shape and started jogging. So he jogs around his block daily until his smartwatch tells him his quota for the day is full. That day he was a bit late, but went for a jog when the sun was setting. Not many people out there, but as he was on his way, some girls saw him jogging their way, got scared and called the cops on him for obviously trying to chase them to rape them or something. Now, the guy didn't know about the call. He just sees two girls seeing him coming, turning around and running away, and he's like, what the? Until the cops come for him, you know, for the biggest offense in the whole human history, trying to get fit. I felt really bad for him. People expecting that I could fight. Man, my ex-girlfriend chatting shit to some scary guy on a train who was acting out, and then just turning to me with a "Are you going to let him speak to me like that?" look on her face when she pissed him off enough. Dude would have fucked me up if I wasn't so good at being diplomatic. AHH. The negotiator. Only one orgasm at a time. There are some men with the legendary power of being able to come twice in less than 10 minutes. They are the lucky ones. I did it once, when I was 14 or 15. It's been all downhill from there. Most women think there's nothing wrong with being abusive and cruel with men. It's so upsetting watching women treat men like absolute shit. To top it off, men are expected to still act like a gentleman, and also they are not allowed to feel vulnerable, or to feel sad, angry because some lady was just a little sassy when in reality she was being abusive piece of shit. I actually dated a chick who was casually physically abusive. It got to the point that I would flinch when she moved her hands too close to me. She made comments about how she doesn't understand why I flinch like her last boyfriend did. Left that real quick. Not being able to take care of children without getting dirty looks. This is true. I'm a dad of 3 and I work from home, so I pick up the kids after school ECT. It is hard for my kids to get their friends' parents to let them come over and play if my wife isn't home too. Pretty disappointing for me to see my kids wonder what is going on. They don't get it. If it was just my wife home with the kids, they wouldn't bat an eye. Not having your emotions taken seriously, then lashing out because of it, and then seen as violent because you just want to be understood. I had that with abusive parents, but normally people don't treat me that way because I'm a woman. I can't imagine what an entire life of not having your feelings acknowledged in a healthy way feels like. Suck it up and be a man. Please like and subscribe for more. This is Laugh with Mims. Goodbye.